Morning, Eddie.
Morning, Razor.
Big game this weekend, but obviously there's been a big story off the field at the club over the last couple of days. Manchester United and an approach to Dan Ashworth. Where are you at with that? What is happening?
Nothing, as far as I'm aware. Obviously, been in the news a lot, and usually with these things, that means something's gonna happen. But as we speak now, we've had no contact from anyone.
Would it be your preference for something like this to be sorted out quickly, whatever the outcome is, so that it doesn't drag on?
Yeah, it's quite an unusual situation. Usually there's transfer speculation on players. This is very different. Yeah, of course, I think we want, whatever happens, a quick resolution.
How much of a blow would it be to lose such a respected figure and somebody in a senior executive role at the club working alongside you?
Yeah, I think it's a difficult one, because I think when you're in that role, I think you need longevity to actually see the fruits of your labour. It's sort of a long-term position. And I think the people that have done it best in the Premier League throughout time have always had a period of real stability and able to, because change takes a long time in any football club to get those processes exactly how you want them to be. So, Dan's had a relatively short time here. So let's see what happens. As I say, as I sit here now, nothing's happened.
With the structures and the staff that you have in place now at the club, how well protected do you feel you would be if you were to lose him, that it wouldn't affect you too much, at least in the short term, and this is not happening within a transfer window?
Yeah, I think football always moves on very quickly, and I'd say that regarding the manager's position. So Newcastle is a huge football club. It will continue to work in a very efficient way, regardless of who's here. Got some very, very capable people here in all departments, so we would carry on very smoothly.
And last one on this, staff can come and go just as players can come and go, and you must have an idea in any case of what might happen next and happen in the future. And how much would that be a sign of a club that's been well run off the pitch, that there would be a succession plan in the event of something like this happening?
Yeah, I think there has to be a succession plan, as you say, for everybody. Players, managers, you name the position. I think that there needs to be a strategy. There is a strategy, of course, from the board above, who I think, since they've come to the football club, have run the club really well.
What about Callum Wilson, Eddie? Because he sustained that injury at the end of the Nottingham Forest match, and it looked quite bad. What is the nature of it, and what is the extent of it?
Yes, it was a really strange injury. So he got in a tussle with the centre-back right at the end of the game. I think we were over the allotted time, and initially, just from my view, I thought I must have hurt his shoulder. But it wasn't. It was a muscle in his pectoral muscle. And so we had it scanned. We hoped initially he could carry on. And he felt good, actually. Callum felt functionally fine. He was moving his arm, had full strength. But when he went to see a specialist, I think it was apparent quite early that he needed it operated on. And I think he's having that operation as we speak.
How is he mentally and emotionally? Because this will be yet another layoff, a fourth one this season. And as you know, historically, he's had more time on the treatment table than any player would have liked.
Yeah, I think this one, was no doubt a big blow to him, because I think he's looking at various things. He's firstly, and his first priority has always been Newcastle, and he feels it's been a really stop-start season for him. He takes that burden of being, one of our two strikers very seriously. He's desperate to do well and score goals, so he was very disappointed in that perspective. And then, of course, he had England on the horizon as well. So we hope he'll be back before the end of the season. We hope that, we will see him again. And I'd never rule anything out. For Callum, he could come back and still play an important part towards the end of the season for us.
I'll come on to Bournemouth in a second, but I just want to ask you about Emil Kraft, because he extended his contract with you by another 12 months this week. He's come back from a really serious injury and featured 9 times for you this season. But what sort of important role can he play over the next season and a half?
He's just a very dependable, really good trainer, really good player, very reliable. Can't speak highly enough of him in the sense of how he handled his injury. Very difficult moment for him. He was in good form. He had a really powerful end to the season when we were trying to avoid relegation, and performed really well towards the end of that campaign. Then got the injury and then worked his way back throughout pre-season this year, and has looked as good as new since he's come back. And that's not easy to do after the injury that he had. So he fully deserves his contract, and he's got a big part to play in our future.
And Bournemouth, although they lost last weekend, their run of form over 2 or 3 months has been really strong, probably dating back to when you last met them in mid-November. What would you say about the way that they've improved as the season's gone on under a new manager?
Yeah, as you say, new manager, and his methods are really strong, really visible with how they play. And I think we felt that in the away game, as you said, against us. And I think since that win, I thought they've had some really good results, culminating really in beating Manchester United 3-0 at Old Trafford, which was a really strong performance. So they have some direct threats, and we're going to have to be aware of them, and we're going to have to play a lot better than we did against them in the first game. But I anticipate that we will, and we can, and it should be a really good game.
And lastly, one of those threats, a player, there's still quite a few there that you signed, but Dominic Solanke, 15 goals this season. How pleased are you to see him performing so well at Premier League level now?
I'm pleased for Dom, yeah. And of course, he played well against us as well in the first game. But yeah, I'm pleased for him on an individual level because he had a tough start to his career at Bournemouth and had to be patient before he got his opportunities. But there was never any doubting his qualities and his talent. And it's no surprise to me to see him doing so well. And he's right up there in the leading goal scorers charts this season. Probably got every chance of representing his country in the summer as well. So he's someone we're going to have to keep quiet and defend well against.
Eddie, you've said in the past that Callum Wilson deals well with setbacks. Whenever he's injured, he's able to focus on the end point in this. But for someone who had only been back for just under one match, how tough will this be for him to take and to get over mentally?
Yeah, I think there was a period, of course, when you get the news that even Callum and anyone will feel a moment of sadness, despair, probably all sorts of emotions. But I think the true test then is how quickly you can refocus on, right, this is what I've got to do. I've got to make the best of this situation because you can't change it. And I think that's what he's very, very good at, is turning that round quite quickly to then refocus and then switch his goals. So he's still got goals. I've had a chat with him. And very quickly he's gone, right, this is what I want to try and achieve before the end of the season. This is what I'm seeing ahead of me. Because it's very easy to wallow in that moment for Callum. It's very easy it's just not going to happen for me this year. But he's not thinking that way. And as I said, I've never written off anything regarding him because I've seen him come back and achieve so many great things. And it's such a difficult injury. How can you predict that's going to happen at that moment? So I really feel for him.
And what about for you as manager? Because I think you've maybe only once or twice had both Callum and Alex to choose from in any given game this season. How much has that hurt you as a team?
Yeah, it's definitely hurt us. Two outstanding players that make each other better as well. So yeah, not having the ability to rotate them, to even use them together has been a real negative for us this year. And just when it looks like there's a possibility we could have both together, at different times this season it's been taken away. And this is another occasion. So we just have to deal with the news and adapt.
Pretty ridiculous situation, that, isn't it? I mean, I guess you feel like you're getting to the end of it, and you obviously touch on it there. It feels like that's just, well, if Callum's injured for the next, 9-10 weeks, it's probably going to go on there until the end of the season.
Yeah, but we can't, very similar to what I said about Callum, we can't then wallow in that news and feel sorry for ourselves. We just have to deal with it. We've got players who can play in that position. We've had to deal with that situation for the majority of the season, so it's it's just a case of looking to the future.
What about Alex then? Any chance of him for the weekend?
Probably not for the weekend. He's very, very, very close, and looking really good. And I'm really pleased with the progress that he's made. And I think mentally, I can see he feels free, he feels good. So let's wait and see.
And Jacob Murphy missed out last week, didn't come off the bench. Could he be back involved? And I think you said a couple of weeks ago that Joe Willock was closer as well. Any chance of either of those two?
So you need to listen to my words here. He has not trained yet, Jacob. So that's where that one is.
So that means he is starting.
It could mean anything. Let's be honest. He hasn't trained yet.
Right. Okay. Will we check with you in a couple of hours?
Yeah, do that.
Joe Willock.
Yeah, again, he's another one like Alex is knocking on the door. Very, very close. Looking good. Feeling much better. Yeah, another huge player for us that we're desperate to get back. So it's close.
And just finally from me, does that mean we could see a bit more of Anthony Gordon through the middle, where you have deployed him a couple of times already this season?
Yeah, we've got a couple of options. Anthony certainly being one of them. I think he's done well there this season. You look back at a couple of goals he scored them from that 9 position. Plays it differently to Alex and Callum, but plays it very effectively. So, yeah, he's one of the options we have.
Thanks, Eddie.
Come on, Eddie. Just one on Dan. How close a personal relationship do you have with him, since I know you talk about his relatively short time here at the club, but every time we've seen you together, you two seem to really get on. How close is that relationship for you?
I think you naturally, when you're in the position that I am and the position that he is, you have to form a close relationship. There's a lot of daily interactions. You have to have that trust with each other. Yeah, and we've built that over the period of time. I think it's difficult sometimes when you're put together to form that relationship, but over time, yeah, certainly we've grown close, and I think there's trust between us both.
Just on Bruno Guimaraes, is he world class?
Yes, I think he is, and I don't say that lightly because it's easy to say, but you know, you have to believe what you're saying, and I do. I think he is. I think he's got unbelievable qualities that we see on a daily basis. He's versatile. He's fundamentally, he's got an unbelievable attitude to life and to the game of football. His passion for the game is, you can see when he's playing, especially at his best. And he can produce moments of absolute magic, which he did against Nottingham Forest, to help us win the game.
I saw after the Forest game that he thanked you for moving him further up the pitch. From a coaching perspective, what do you think works better for the team? Bruno as a 6 or Bruno as an 8?
Well, I think he helps you in both phases, depending on which position that he plays. I think it's all about the balance for me, the balance of the players around him. For me personally, I wouldn't get caught up with the 8 debate. Everyone was going, oh, he scored 2 as an 8, and he scored 1 from a set play, and he scored 1 when he was playing as a number 6. So all this talk of moving to 8 and he score goals, I think he will score more goals naturally because he's playing higher up the pitch, but he is an unbelievable player in both positions, and it's about, I suppose for me, choosing the game, and in part that will be, as I said, about the players around him will dictate that as well.
Just one on the injury side of things. How sick are you of saying the phrase strange or freak injuries this season?
Yeah, tired of talking about injuries full stop, really. But sometimes you're scratching your head as to how that happened. You know, Callum I've never even heard of an injury in that position of the body, part of the body. And we've had Nick's shoulder, Jacob's shoulder, now Callum's chest, and they're 3 injuries that, you know, sometimes you might get 1 in a couple of seasons, when we've had 3 in the space of a short period of time. So I'm not sure.
Obviously, at the minute, Newcastle are scoring a lot and conceding a lot. It's naturally drawing comparisons with the kind of the entertainers era. I know how much respect you have for Kevin Keegan, but how do you view that, label, I suppose you could say it?
I think it's a compliment. I think it's a definite compliment, and I take it that way. I think for us, we do want to entertain. We do want the supporters to come and feel really excited about what they're going to see, what type of games it's going to be. Sort of a lot of unknowns with us at the moment. I think that does lead to a sort of an excitement feeling, and what could we be? Could we catch fire? Could we score goals today? I think when you're coaching the team, you want a bit more consistency as well. So that's what we're sort of chasing. Got no problem with the goals. 4, of course. We're always pushing that. We want to be a really attacking team. We've got to get the balance right. We've got to make sure that we're not unreliable defensively. But I don't think that's a problem for us with with the players. I think their mentality to defending is very good. I think we're just going through one of those moments where we're getting punished for any mistake we make.
And just finally from me, ahead of Bournemouth, another home game, how do you remove those kind of unknowns? I think you just referenced it, that kind of chaotic elements at the moment, especially at St James's Park.
Well, sometimes you can't control all the controllables in a game. It's very, very difficult. Football is a random game, and it's a game of moments. So I think if you're obsessed with trying to control every single thing, you'll drive yourself mad. So for us, look, we're on a good run of form. We won last week 3-2. I'll take that. I'll take any win as long as we score more than the opposition. So we're chasing that winning feeling, and however we get there, we have to accept it. So that's what we'll try to do this weekend.
Thanks, Ed.
Eddie, why do you think Bournemouth have proved such tough opposition for you since you've been manager here?
I think every opposition's tough. The games we've had against them, I think, have been tight, but I think they're a good team. And I think you look at their run of form. They've been excellent. They've been excellent for a long period of time. So every game's difficult. That showed against Luton a couple of weeks ago. And Bournemouth will be exactly the same. They've got very dangerous players. This isn't an easy game for us, and we have to give it our full attention and full respect.
We saw how Bruno celebrated the scoring last week. How much does he embody the passion of the fans?
Well, I think that's why there's such a healthy relationship between the supporters and Bruno, because he wears his heart on his sleeve. You're not guessing how Bruno's feeling when you're watching him play, and I think the supporters can really then identify with his passion for football and Newcastle. So I think it's a really good mix. I love it when he's passionate, because I think that usually means he's in a really good place. And I love to see him smiling and happy and enjoying his football, which he was last week. And so I'll certainly take more of the same.
In terms of the injuries, do you sometimes just feel like this season luck is not on your side?
I don't think you can ever have that view, because then where does it lead you? So no, I think we have to look at it the other way and go, if we can still be successful despite of some of the challenges we've faced, then we look in a really good place for the future. So we've been hampered many times. We feel at times that we've had a rough ride, but you own your luck, so we've got to try and swing that round.
Just one finally from me on Dan. If he does go, do you think it will partly be down to any frustration that he might feel about not being able to do as much as he would have liked because of FFP?
That's a question for Dan, not for me. I can't answer on his behalf.
Okay,
Thanks, Dawn. Damien, Lee, and then Chris.
Eddie, on a similar theme, if and when that formal approach does come, would you expect Dan to be torn, given the project you've undertaken here?
Again, I'll answer any question, but very difficult to speak on Dan's behalf, on what he's thinking or feeling. Only he can do that.
On Alex Isak, is there an element with him of the intensity and physicality of the Premier League taking its toll on him? Because I suppose he hasn't played that many games in England.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think he's had a period where he picked up a very similar injury to his groin. The latest injury he's had, because it's the third time he's had sort of the injury in a similar area, it is in a different place. I just think that for whatever reason that's happened. He has played a lot of games. He has played 90 minutes off the back of not a lot of training time, because we were forced to do that. So I think there's reasons behind it. I don't think it's a case of Alex not being robust enough. He's an incredible athlete, actually, and we're very lucky to have him.
Thank you. Thanks. Lee?
Eddie, on Dan, obviously Man United, a rival of Newcastle, and he's obviously been linked, there's obviously something in it. How comfortable are you for this situation to go on? Because if he's privy to information and he's going to a rival, then that doesn't seem to bode well long term.
Yeah, I think your concerns are relevant. I don't know quite how much I can say on that, but yeah, I share your feelings.
And you would want it, to come to a conclusion sooner rather than later, than it just dragging on.
I think it's better for everybody if that's the case.
Yeah. And just on the football, the peak down there at Bournemouth, earlier in the season. That wasn't Newcastle showing the best side. He seems to be in a much better place now. A few games unbeaten. Looking forward to it. Staying in touch with the European places.
Yeah, I think we've got a lot to drive us forward in this game. A lot of motivations for us. Yeah, that day was difficult. I think that was probably the start of our most disjointed period. I think we were off the back of a Champions League game where those games were difficult to recover from. We weren't happy with our performance that day, and we deservedly lost the game.
Can I just quickly check on Matt Target where he is? He seems to be getting better by the day.
Yeah, he's in a very similar position to Elliot. They're sort of working very closely. Elliot Anderson working very closely together. They're due to be training very soon, hopefully within the next 10 days.
Chris. Morning, Eddie. Have you spoken to Dan, and by that I mean both specifically about this and generally about day-to-day runnings of the club at the moment?
Yeah, we're in obviously regular communication.
And I mean in terms of the how frustrating, or is it frustrating that has Dan indicated what his sort of thoughts are going forward, and if so, if he hasn't either way, how frustrating is that for you, or is it not frustrating? Is it just the way that things go?
I think it's a very personal thing for Dan, this moment. Again, I find it very difficult to talk on his behalf in terms of how he's feeling. I don't think I have the right to do that.
And in terms of for you on a day-to-day basis, has this been disruptive?
No.
Craig, Dom, and then Luke.
I think there's a worry among supporters, maybe called a misconception, that if Dan goes, that will impact severely on transfers, but I suppose there's a transfer structure in place already, which existed pre-Dan, and you're very much at the heart of that.
Yeah, the biggest compliment I can give Dan when he came in, and it's very difficult to do, I think, when you're in a position of power like he is, then the natural temptation is to change everything and to come in with a big ego and go, right, this is what we're going to do. But the biggest compliment I can pay Dan is he didn't. And he let the structures that were in place exist and survive, and we're still working the same way that we were in the first transfer window. And I have to pay him a huge compliment in that. And our recruitment has been very good, I think, from, and I'm including the summer, because I think that those transfer deals will come good for the club in the long term. Yeah, that won't be affected.
Are summer plans already in place?
Summer transfers.
In terms of targets being drawn up, and are those in place?
Yeah, the work never stops, Craig, as you know. The work never stops. The work never stopped in the build-up to January. It won't stop in the build-up to the summer. It's a 365-a-day job, recruitment. It never sleeps. And, yeah, the processes are unchanged.
That lends itself just finally to Lee's point that Dan is obviously privy to those plans.
Yeah, and that's where I say he's in a position of power and a lot of intelligence and information. So that's why it's a slightly unusual situation.
Thank you.
Dominic. Morning, Eddie. Just on the injury situation, as negative as that has been in terms of the attacking positions, how do you feel you've put together your most prolific run in that time in terms of scoring goals?
Yeah, as I said, I think the players have responded really well to every challenge that we've had this year. It has been a very, very difficult and unusual season in terms of different challenges at different moments, lots of games, lots of unsettling situations with injuries, etc., suspensions. Never had that feeling of being really at full strength, and that's quite unusual, I think, throughout a season. But the players have handled that brilliantly. The players that have played consistently, I have to give them a huge compliment to how they've stayed mentally strong, how they've never let their heads drop and feel that we're victims this season. We're not at all. We're just trying to navigate our way through a very tough season. And I still feel we can have a successful conclusion and end. And I know the players feel the same way. And if we can, then the next seasons beyond, if we can recover our full strength, I think we'll be even better for the experiences of this year.
Yeah. A few weeks ago you mentioned there was a possibility Joe Linton played his last game for the club given his contract situation and injury situation. There's comparisons that could be made with Callum Wilson. Does that same possibility apply to him?
No, I think a totally different situation. Joe's is a contract issue. Callum's is an injury. So totally different situations.
Okay, and in terms of Joe Linton, is there any update in that regard?
Okay. Luke, Louise, and then Simon. Luke?
Hi there.
Sorry.
Do you want to go first, Louise?
No, you
No,
go
all
first.
right.
Has Dan said that he wants to stay at Newcastle United this week?
No.
Well, that's quite a difficult question. But, and are you confident that moving forward, that the disruption will be minimal? That you go ahead, your plans build, the club will carry on moving forward and will continue in the same vein it has been?
The club will always move forward. As I said earlier, we've got some very, very good people in different departments of the football clubs doing outstanding work that, of course, no one sees, but the club's still hugely ambitious. That's never changed. Yeah, and I've got no doubts the club will be successful in the future.
And going back to your first one, I think most people probably think of that as being the most successful one. That obviously predates Dan Ashworth's arrival, as did most of the work for the summer window. So you must be fairly confident that the recruitment team will be fine.
Yeah, I mean, that window was incredibly difficult, but at the time we didn't know quite how successful those players would turn out to be. But as you say, probably our most successful window. I don't know. The next one as well, the summer window was very, very good, and Dan had only just arrived at that time. So as I said, the biggest thing that he did is didn't change anything. We just carried on as normal. So I think our recruitment's been very strong. Now, that doesn't guarantee anything for the future, of course, but we'll still work the same way.
Thank you.
Thanks. Louise?
Hi, Eddie. Last week, when you were talking about the injuries, you said that the Premier League was faster this year. So I checked this out with Opta, and it actually technically is, although strangely 2009, 2013 and 2015 were actually quicker. But the really interesting thing is that Newcastle have had more fast breaks against you than any other side in the Premier League. Do you think this is because of your high press strategy and teams trying to break you and having fast wingers and everything? And is it something that you're addressing?
I think you should come on our recruitment team, our sports science team and our physio team, by the sound of it. Some very useful stats for us to digest, or for me to digest. Excuse me. Yeah, well, as I said many times, we're well aware of sort of where we are statistically. The Premier League is the quickest it's been. Depends obviously what metrics you're measuring against than it's ever been. And I do anticipate that will continue. In terms of the fast breaks against us, I think there's a combination of things for that. Certainly our high press would be one of those things. And we're always trying to find ways to limit the opposition threat. And certainly when you look at Bournemouth, that's going to be one of their strengths. So it's something we have to be good against this weekend.
Because statistics can be misleading and there's so many different metrics that you can judge things by, I mean, do you kind of obsess about them? Do you spend hours poring over them, or do you take them with a touch of scepticism at times?
A mixture of all those things, really. I think there's some things you can look at that are really interesting and you can actually use to help make adjustments to your team. And there's a lot of information that's absolutely redundant to me, and I know it's there, but I don't take much notice of it. So we're always looking for the biggest thing I think with statistics, if it can tell you something you can't see or you're not aware of, that's powerful. But it's all about finding solutions to those things, which is of course where the brain has to work, and the training ground work's so important for us.
Thanks, Louise. Simon?
Hi.
Hi, Simon.
Is Dan going to hold the planned meetings with scouts today, or is that going to be cancelled?
I've got no idea on his daily schedule, so I don't know.
And given that he's not staying, it's not said he's definitely staying at Newcastle, and it's a multi-million-pound business, lots of sensitive information. Should he still be in the building? Should he still be working at Newcastle?
Yeah, I don't think that's a question for me to answer. That's for someone above me.
Okay, thanks.
No problem.
Oh, can I ask one more?
Yeah.
You've not about Dan. You've been linked steadily over the last 6 months to a year with several Bournemouth players, Billing, Lloyd Kelly, Solanke. Do they have players who you admire and who could play for Newcastle at some point?
I've got to be careful with my answer here, haven't I? Because we're playing them. So, no, there's players, of course, I admire because I signed them previously, and I think they're outstanding players. Whether or not they're right fits for Newcastle, that's another matter. And don't always believe, the rumours that you read in the newspaper, because some of those probably won't be true.
Kieran and Martin?
Maybe a few weeks ago, I think you said clubs were in a rush to do a favour for you guys and you had no friends. How important is it for you?
I had no friends. Well, you might know more than me. I thought I had a couple, but...
How important is it for you guys not to almost run off the welcome mat as well as the club comes calling for a key figure?
Yeah, of course. I think it goes without saying that we're very protective of, what's ours, whether that's players, staff, and if people do eventually move on to other clubs, then there's a process to go through before that is reality.
How big is Steve Nixon here?
How big is he? Yeah, no, he's an important part of our recruitment. When we came initially in that January window, he was very important to me and the coaching team in terms of identifying targets and to make sure that first window was a real success. And he does a lot of work behind the scenes.
Finally, do you think you need a striker? Obviously you've been quite stretched up front.
I think if you have an injury to one of the two strikers that we have, then of course you're going to look at it and think, we need a striker. That the issue that we have is they're usually very, very, very expensive. And then it's, if those two strikers are fit, what do you do with the third one? So it's not as easy as, do you need a striker, let's go and get one, because obviously we're having to be very smart with the money that we do have, with financial fair play, and it's putting that money into the best positions possible. So it's a delicate balance for us.
Okay, Martin and then Jordan.
Yeah, so sorry, just to conclude on Dan, do you want the situation resolved as quickly as possible?
Yeah, it's not about what I want though, is it? I don't know, it's not my decision, and I'm not in control of it.
But it's important for the football club that it is, then?
I think at some stage, yeah, there has to be a line drawn and things have to move forward, I think.
Okay, and just on Dominic Solanke, does Callum Wilson's injury move him up the England pecking order, and how good is he and how good can he be?
Yeah, I'm always reluctant to talk England, but if you're asking me a direct question, of course I think Callum Wilson's injury has a part in Dominic's view for England, I'm sure. I think he can play international football for sure. I've watched a lot of him this year, and he's impressed me every time I've seen him.
Jordan?
Just going back to Kieran's point on the striker, probably a daft question, but you've got two places in the 25-man squad. What do you consider signing a free agent in Callum Wilson's absence?
If you can give me some names.
I'll come back to you.
Good man.
But just on that as well, how do you cope with running before you want to recognise striker between now and the end of the season?
How do we cope, did you say?
Yeah, how do you cope? Because given Alex's sort of injury problems this season as well.
Yeah, look, we have to cope. We've got no choice. And I do think we have players that can play in that position, and we'll continue to either tweak and change and mould, and of course we can change system, etc., until we find the right solution.